Most superstars walk into WrestleMania knowing they have one match, one opportunity to change their careers forever. Daniel Bryan walked in, knowing one victory would never be enough. To reach the top of WWE, he first had to survive Triple H, then return later that same night to battle Randy Orton and Batista for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Two career-defining matches, one exhausting night, and absolutely no room for failure. The first battle wasn't even for the championship, it was simply the price of admission. Beat Triple H, and Bryan would finally earn his place in the WrestleMania main event. Lose, and the dream that millions of fans had spent an entire year fighting for would end before the biggest match of the night even began. It wasn't a fair challenge, it was a deliberate obstacle, designed to stop the ultimate underdog from ever reaching the finish line. This is the story of the night Daniel Bryan was forced to earn WrestleMania twice. A night where pain, exhaustion, and impossible odds stood between him and the championship that had been kept just out of his reach for far too long. It's the story of how one determined superstar overcame every obstacle the authority placed in front of him and delivered one of the most unforgettable endings in WWE history. For nearly a year, Daniel Bryan had become the one superstar WWE couldn't control. Every week, arenas erupted with chants of "yes" as fans rallied behind the unlikely underdog. He wasn't the tallest, strongest, or most marketable wrestler by WWE's traditional standards, but none of that seemed to matter anymore. Every incredible performance only strengthened the bond between Bryan and the audience, turning him from a talented competitor into the heartbeat of the company. The louder the fans became, the harder the authority worked to convince everyone that Daniel Bryan simply wasn't championship material. Triple H and Stephanie McMahon had a very different vision for WWE's future. They believed the face of the company should look larger than life, someone who fit the image of a dominant superstar. Randy Orton perfectly represented that vision as the reigning WWE World Heavyweight Champion, while Batista's highly anticipated return gave WWE another marquee attraction heading into WrestleMania. Daniel Bryan, despite earning the loudest reactions night after night, continued to be treated as though he didn't belong in the biggest matches. Every opportunity seemed to slip away, just as he was about to seize it, and every setback only fueled the growing frustration of the WWE Universe. That frustration reached its breaking point after the Royal Rumble. Batista's victory was supposed to set the stage for a blockbuster WrestleMania main event, but instead, fans rejected the plan almost immediately. Wherever WWE traveled, the chants for Daniel Bryan grew even louder. Segments featuring other superstars were interrupted by waves of "yes" chants, making it impossible for WWE to ignore what the audience truly wanted. This wasn't just support for a popular wrestler anymore. It had evolved into a movement that challenged the authorities' every decision. Faced with overwhelming pressure, WWE finally acknowledged what the fans had demanded for months. Daniel Bryan would receive an opportunity to fight for a place in the WrestleMania main event, but only under one condition. Before he could even think about challenging for the championship, he first had to defeat Triple H. It was a condition that sounded almost impossible. Triple H wasn't just an executive pulling the strings behind the scenes. He was one of the most accomplished competitors in WWE history, a multiple-time world champion who had built a career on ending dreams just as they were beginning. The stipulation revealed exactly how determined the authority was to stop Bryan. They weren't willing to hand him the opportunity the fans believed he had already earned. Instead, they forced him to fight through one final obstacle before the championship match could even begin. And even if Bryan somehow managed to defeat Triple H, his reward wouldn't be rest or celebration. His reward would be stepping into the main event later that night against Randy Orton and Batista, two elite competitors who had spent the entire day conserving their energy, while Bryan would already be carrying the scars of a brutal battle. That was the true genius behind the challenge. Triple H understood that wrestling two high-level matches on the grandest stage of them all wasn't just physically demanding, it was mentally exhausting. Every suplex, every strike, every painful landing in the opening match would leave Bryan weaker by the time the championship match arrived. The authority wasn't relying on luck. They had carefully created a scenario where Daniel Bryan would have to accomplish something almost no superstar had ever been asked to do. To become champion, he wouldn't just need to beat the best once. He would need to survive them twice. As WrestleMania XXX finally arrived on April 6, 2014, the atmosphere inside the Mercedes-Benz Superdome felt electric. More than 70,000 fans filled the stadium, but the energy centered around one man. Everywhere Daniel Bryan looked, thousands of raised fingers filled the arena, while deafening chants of "yes" echoed through the building. The audience wasn't simply cheering for a favorite wrestler anymore. They were demanding justice for someone they believed had been overlooked for far too long. Years of hard work, months of frustration, and countless obstacles had all led to this single night. When Daniel Bryan made his entrance, the emotion on his face reflected the weight of the moment. He knew this wasn't just another WrestleMania match. It was the biggest test of his entire career. Across the ring stood Triple H, confident as ever, fully convinced that his experience and power would finally bring the Yes movement to an end. For Triple H, this was about protecting the authority's vision of WWE. For Bryan, it was about proving that determination could overcome politics, expectations, and impossible odds. As the referee called for the opening bell, the championship wasn't hanging above the ring. There was no title to win, no celebration waiting at the end of the match. There was only opportunity. If Daniel Bryan failed, the dream would die before the main event even began. But if he somehow found a way to defeat one of WWE's greatest competitors, an even bigger challenge would still be waiting later that same night. His journey to the top wasn't about to end with Triple H. In many ways, it was only just beginning. The moment the opening bell rang, Triple H wasted no time reminding everyone why he had earned the nickname The Game. He wasn't interested in putting on a technical masterpiece or proving he was the better wrestler. His objective was much simpler: to make Daniel Bryan suffer. Every move carried extra force, every strike was delivered with bad intentions, and every second Bryan spent trapped in the ring was another second of energy draining away before the biggest match of his life. Triple H understood that even if Bryan somehow escaped with a victory, he could still make sure there wasn't enough left in the tank for the main event. Bryan, however, refused to let the moment overwhelm him. Instead of matching Triple H's raw power, he relied on the speed, precision, and relentless fighting spirit that had carried him this far. Every time Triple H knocked him down, Bryan found a way back to his feet. Every time the veteran seemed ready to take complete control, Bryan answered with another burst of offense that reignited the crowd. The louder the "yes" chants became, the more Bryan seemed to feed off their energy. It wasn't just one man fighting anymore. It felt as though an entire arena was willing him to keep going. Triple H quickly realized that simply out-wrestling Bryan wasn't going to be enough. He began targeting Bryan's shoulder with ruthless precision, repeatedly slamming it into the mat, wrenching it against the ropes and attacking it whenever an opening appeared. The strategy was painfully clear. As the match entered its final stages, exhaustion became impossible to ignore. Both competitors showed the effects of the war they had been through, but Bryan's injured shoulder continued to limit everything he did. Simple movements became painful. Every time he reached for the ropes or attempted to lift Triple H, the damage was obvious. Yet somehow, he kept finding another reserve of determination. The audience sensed that something special was unfolding, and every near fall sent waves of emotion through the packed stadium. Thousands of fans rose to their feet, refusing to sit down as the drama intensified. With every ounce of strength remaining, Bryan unleashed a furious combination of offense before locking Triple H in the yes lock. The hold wasn't applied perfectly because of the damage to his shoulder, making the struggle even more dramatic. Bryan grimaced in pain while desperately trying to maintain control. Then, in one unforgettable moment, Triple H had no choice but to tap out. The Superdome exploded. Daniel Bryan had done what so many believed was impossible. He had defeated Triple H on the grandest stage of them all, and officially earned his place in the WrestleMania main event. After months of being told he didn't belong, Bryan had forced his way into the championship match through sheer determination. For a brief moment, it seemed the impossible dream was finally becoming reality. But Triple H wasn't ready to let the story end there. As Bryan celebrated his hard-earned victory, the frustration on Triple H's face quickly turned into anger. Refusing to accept defeat, he launched a vicious post-match assault on Bryan, targeting the already injured shoulder with ruthless intent. The attack wasn't about revenge. It was about ensuring Bryan had no chance of surviving what still awaited him. Every strike sent a clear message. Even though Bryan had won the battle, the authority intended to win the war. By the time the main event finally arrived, Daniel Bryan had already endured the kind of punishment most superstars would consider enough for one night. His shoulder was heavily taped, his body was exhausted, and every movement reminded him of the war he had fought just hours earlier. Meanwhile, Randy Orton and Batista entered the match fresh, knowing they held every physical advantage. It was exactly the situation the Authority had planned from the very beginning. Bryan wasn't supposed to have anything left. The match quickly became a 2-on-1 battle. Orton and Batista repeatedly took advantage of Bryan's injured shoulder, tossing him around the ring and forcing him to absorb punishment from both sides. Whenever Bryan built momentum, another brutal attack brought him crashing back down. Even Triple H couldn't resist getting involved, storming to ringside alongside Stephanie McMahon to ensure Bryan's dream would finally come to an end. But chaos soon erupted as members of the locker room, including the Shield, neutralized the Authority's interference, allowing the championship match to continue on its own. Even then, Bryan refused to stay down. Fighting through pain that was visible with every strike, he answered with the trademark kicks that had carried him throughout his career. The crowd grew louder with every comeback, sensing that the impossible was somehow becoming possible. After surviving Batista's power and Orton's calculated offense, Bryan seized one final opening. He trapped Batista in the yes-lock, ignoring the agony in his damaged shoulder long enough to keep the hold locked in. Moments later, Batista had no choice but to tap out. Just like that, it was over. Daniel Bryan had defeated Triple H, survived Randy Orton and Batista, and captured the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, all in a single, unforgettable night. As confetti rained from the ceiling, and more than 70,000 fans filled the Superdome with deafening yes chants, Bryan stood at the top of WWE with both championship titles raised high above his head. It wasn't just a championship celebration. It was the payoff to a story that fans had spent an entire year demanding to see. WrestleMania XXX is remembered for many incredible moments, but Daniel Bryan's journey stands above them all because it wasn't simply about winning a title. He had to earn the opportunity, survive 2 brutal matches, overcome injury, and defeat every obstacle the Authority placed in front of him before reaching the finish line. On a night when one victory should have been enough, Daniel Bryan proved that sometimes the greatest WrestleMania moments aren't given, they're earned twice.